So we'll get started. Firstly, we understand completely that grant writing is a daunting activity. It is a skill set. The more you do it, the better you get at doing it. And especially for people in small business, because you're all busy juggling lots of different things at once. So we know it's challenging, confusing, frustrating, mind-boggling, and often competitive. Not all grants are competitive. This is a competitive grant round, so it's important that you make the best effort. So take your time. Don't rush your application. So I've got my little running, whatever it is, hamster. Read the guidelines and the facts provided carefully. More than once is really good. Use a highlighter, get all those key terms and phrases to make sure you don't miss anything important. Think about what the funding body are trying to achieve. They will have that in their objectives. Read it carefully, don't skip over it, because this is what you're needing to meet. And if you can talk about those things, your grant application will progress further. Ensure that it meets these requirements. So it's really important that you take the time to do this. So we know that you can feel like this at times. At sea, it's maybe something, some of you will have done grants before, been successful. Maybe some people haven't been so successful. Maybe it's the first time for some of you. We know it can feel like this, but we are here to help. We really are. There's great mentors that are available to help you with your application. So we talk about that a little bit further into the presentation. So who am I and why should you listen to me, I suppose? So I'm a business mentor at Sbms, and I've also written quite a lot of grant and tender applications, as well as developed the grant processes and assessed grants. I have business qualifications. I'm a business owner. I've founded businesses as well. So there's a bit of experience there. From the grant side of things, which I guess is the most important thing for you guys today, I've actually been trained and endorsed by Byrne, who's the author of Grants in Australia, and is sort of the grandfather of grants really in Australia. He travels the world teaching people how to write better grants. So I've been very lucky to actually spend some time with him. And of course, I work with the most amazing group of mentors at Sbms, each with a great wealth of experience. And it really, honestly, if you tap into that wealth of experience, you will gain so many benefits from doing that. So let's get started, because I'm really aware that the clock is ticking, not only on my clock for this presentation, but also on your application, because you've just got over a week to get it in. So today we're going to take a really quick look, like a speedy look, at the guidelines and what the funding bodies are looking for. Then we're going to look at the eligibility criteria and check that you meet them. Now this will be speedy because basically it's a yes or a no. And if you get a no at any point, at this point in time, then you're not going to be able to progress. But where most grant applications come unstuck is at the next point, which is where you're starting to actually address the assessment criteria. So we're going to spend some time in there. Tammy and I are going to be doing a bit of toing and froing there to make sure that you get both sides of the coin. And also we're going to chat about providing the correct documentation and supplementary documentation. There will definitely be time for questions at the end. I will talk really quickly. I suggest not taking notes. As far as I know, this slide set is going to be available as a PDF for you to download on the City of Melbourne website. So be listening and watching. You'll be able to read through it if you want to do that. So just a quick reminder that your applications close on Thursday, the 3rd of September at 11:59. It's just over a week away. So what do funders really want? They want projects that match their objectives. They want a demonstrated benefit, not just to you, but to the community as a whole. They want confidence that the project will go ahead and that there will be an outcome. So be realistic in your timeframes and in your budget. And they also want some recognition and acknowledgement. They'd like some thanks. They're funding you. So let's get to the elephant in the room. what is the problem with most grant applications? Where do they fail? In my experience, the funding bodies do want you to succeed. I know a lot of people feel that they don't, and there's trick questions and smoke and mirrors. Absolutely, that is not my experience at all. They tell you what they want. They tell you who they're targeting. They give you as much information as they possibly can. So where does it all go horribly wrong? If the granting body are giving you everything that you require. I spoke to a grants assessor and administrator who I may be related to, who's not present, doesn't work for the City of Melbourne, I promise you. And her main advice was that applicants do not read the question. And then they tell her, as an assessor, what they want to tell her, not what she needs to hear to answer the question. The questions are there for a specific reason, and that's to make sure that your project is viable, that it meets the requirements of the granting body. The grant has been set up for a reason. We need to meet that reason. So, for example, she says, when I ask about stripes, don't tell me about polka dots. You might like polka dots, maybe even I like polka dots, but the question is about stripes. So be making sure that you read the question very, very carefully. It may be a great answer that you're giving, but it might be for a different question. And I'm going to belabor this point, and I'm sorry, but if I can get this through to you, it'll be the best thing for your grant applications. So I actually pinched some slides from her slide deck, and she does a tale of two applicants. And you can clearly see on this slide, you've got the top applicant. I love polka dots. I'm going to talk about polka dots. The bottom applicant is, you know, oh, it's about stripes. They want about stripes. So they think about something on the other side, how the assessors see it. Who should I fund? It's competitive. There's limited funds available. There's usually these things are oversubscribed. So they're looking for the best possible applications. So the dots come in. Where are the stripes, says the poor assessor. And at the bottom assessor says, that's a clever use of stripes. So you can easily see who gets the money. It's obviously going to be the clever use of stripes. So more advice, it's write an excellent answer to the question that the application asks, not an excellent answer to the question that you wish they had asked. And again, I know I'm repeating this, but honestly, this is the critical piece of information that you need to be in the money. So start by looking at the information that's been provided to check that your business is eligible. So I've got there a copy and paste of the grant guidelines for you. Be looking at them very closely, making sure that you're very thorough. Read them more than once. Go through them with a highlighter. These are available on the City of Melbourne website and the Smarty Grants platform. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the Smarty Grants platform. You can download a preview form. You can do this before you even register. Many of you will already be registered, I realise that, but you can download a preview form or you can preview it online if you like. Tammy just asked me to talk to you about logging in or registering. Really, if you're logging in, you already know how to register. You will need to create an account on Smarty Grants if you haven't already done so. You can access that through the Business Grants page on the City of Melbourne website. So go in and you can clearly see here where you register, or log in if you already have an account. So just really quickly, want to talk to you about the Smarty Grants platform. It's a great platform. It's really user-friendly. If you have any technical issues, please either download the PDF version here of the Smarty Grants help guide, or you can contact Smarty Grants, and later on in the slide set, I've got the actual contact details for Smarty Grants. So it's really, there's no value in ringing City of Melbourne if you've got problems accessing a page on Smarty Grants, because the guys there can't do anything for you. You need to go to Smarty Grants, and that'll just save time for you. So very quickly, we're going to go through the program guidelines, and then we're going to look at the application form. We're not going to spend heaps of time here because I'm really aware that the clock is ticking away, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask some questions. So this is what you see when you download the program guidelines, and we've clearly got the objectives there. Read these carefully, go through it, highlight the things that you think are important there, and I have a list coming up. Also from that application form from the Smarty Grants platform, you can see here there's also some information, and there is actually some more information at the beginning of the application form than what is at the beginning of the guidelines. So it's good to have them side by side. It's probably a good idea to print them off, or if you like to split your screen and have a look at them both. The information that I have drawn from those two documents are, from the guidelines, the program objectives and purpose are that they're for small business. It's to adapt and activate through new innovative initiatives. Bricks and mortar businesses, it's very clear about that, impacted by decreased foot traffic through the COVID pandemic. There's very specific postcodes that this grant is targeting. It's about adapting and continuing to trade through COVID-19, generate new revenue streams or build ongoing financial viability. It's about sustainability in that sense, and attract new and returning customers to the city. So that was what we got from the program guidelines. From the application form, we can see that there are target industries that are significantly impacted by COVID-19 restrictions, and that it's up to $5,000, which you're probably all aware of already. So we need to be thinking, does our business meet these objectives? Because if anything is no here, then that is really, this is not the right grant for you. So also look for definitions of terms, and really there was only one that I could find, and that was the definition of a bricks and mortar business in this particular grant round. But often there are other definitions of terms. Just be making sure that you understand what is meant by that, because that could impact your application. So from the program guidelines, yeah, I'm sorry, there is more, but there's the eligibility. So who is eligible? So we now know what the objectives of the grant are. Now we're looking at whether we are actually eligible. So there's quite a bit more information here. I just want to highlight down the bottom there, you will see the Australian Ethical Charter, and I've got my little flash up thing that says attention, read me. And this is because it will be of value to you in actually writing your responses to the assessment criteria. So it'd be a good idea to download that or to open it up so that you can have a look at it, because it will actually help you. And I think Tammy's going to talk to you a little bit later about some of that too. So the important information about eligibility that I gleaned from the guidelines was that you must have an ABN, you are eligible for one grant only, you have documented evidence of your business structure. Obviously, you need your insurances in place, your public liability and professional indemnity, that you have employees at the time of application. So it's for businesses that are employing, and that they're deeming it is up to 50 full-time employees. So participating in the JobKeeper scheme is another point that you must meet. Physically located in the CBD area, and we talked about those specified areas. If you are at a co-working space, you need to be able to demonstrate that you are there for at least 50% of the year. So we need to be ticking all of those things again, guys. If there's something that's a no, this is probably not the right grant for you. My little think box coming up again. So unfortunately, as there are some businesses that are not eligible. I'm not going to run right through this. It's a copy and paste from the guidelines, but you can see clearly at the very top, there's non-employing businesses. So if you're not employing anybody, you're not accessing the JobKeeper scheme, then obviously this is not the right grant for you. Also, we can see that hospitality businesses are not being targeted in this round. There are other programs available. There are other things there. It's well worth reading through it to make sure that there's nothing there that would exclude you from applying for this grant. What is funded and what is not. So we've discussed already pretty much what is funded and how much funding is available. Just want to spend a couple of moments talking about what's not funded to make sure that you're clear on that. So it's not for operating costs, it's not for salaries. So rents, for, your phone bill, electricity bills, stock that you wish to sell, or any personal expenditure. It's not included in this grant. So just be aware of what's not funded, because sometimes we can slip up, put in things that are not eligible for funding, and then our application wouldn't succeed. So we've jumped through some hurdles now. We know that we meet the program objectives, and we know that we're eligible for funding. So this is where we get to talk about the place that it tends to go horribly wrong, because up until this point it's pretty much yes and no, and if you get a no, you won't be able to progress further in the form to the questions. So let's have a very frank conversation about where this goes wrong. Firstly, I just love this slide that's coming up, and it is, how do you feel when you think you've done a great job, you've worked really hard, you've gathered all your information, and you don't get funded? Pretty much like Mr. Fox here doing a head dive into the snow. So, are the assessment criteria important? It's a resounding yes. They are critical. They are critical to your success. It shows your ability to deliver to the objectives. It shows how you are competitive. And always be remembering that it's a merit-based assessment. So even if you meet all of the eligibility criteria, it's still competitive at the end of the day. So you need to be putting time into these questions. The success of your eligible application lives and dies on the answer to your assessment criteria. I can't be any clearer than that. It is so important that you get this part right. So from the guideline, here's the assessment criteria. There are three main areas: alignment with the program's purpose and objectives, the proposal readiness and financial viability, and then the other considerations. So I'm guessing, oh, and also one of the key things is timeframes. Can you complete your project within the time frame? Because that's really important and something they'll be looking at when they're doing the assessments. So the word that I see over and over and over again in the assessment criteria is demonstrate, demonstrate, demonstrate. We need to be showing how we are actually going to meet our project outcomes. So please keep this firmly in mind as you write your responses. It's really important that you don't sort of wander off down another tangent. Keep them very specific. And another thing is, by keeping that in mind, it makes sure that you're always talking in a very positive and compelling way about your project. You are selling this idea to your assessors. The other thing we need to talk about is relevance. So making sure that everything's relevant. And this harks back to my assessor friend who says, can people please tell me, can they please give me an answer to the question I ask? That's what I need to know. So there's sort of that sweet spot with what you want to say and what it is that they actually want to hear from you. So be keeping that in mind, and I will be repeating that again, and I'm sorry if I drove you crazy with it, but it's really important. So we're now leaving the program guidelines. We've been looking at some of cut and paste from the program guidelines, and we're starting to work on the actual application form. Remember that long-suffering grant administrator friend, applicants do not read the question. They tell me what they want to tell me, and they don't tell me what I need to know. Don't talk about polka dots when the question is about stripes. Read the assessment question really carefully. The very first question is a summary of your business, and I'm really confident that you guys are going to be able to write a really good summary for your business. I don't think I probably need to talk to you too much about that. Down in the left-hand bottom corner, there's a cut and paste from the actual application. If you're wondering what that is down there, you can see it's 200 words to talk about the business. I've got a suggested response in here. I'll just quickly read through it, but if you download this as a PDF, you'll be able to read it. We don't want copy and paste and take out what I've written in there and put in what your details are, but certainly use it to inspire you to to write about your business and to answer the other questions. So just give a bit of detail where you're located, how long you've been in the CBD area, what it is you sell. I'm selling widgets and Watsits here. I've been there for 5, 10 or 20 years. I've been impacted by COVID. I employed people. Can you see that I'm meeting all of those objectives now? And I have indicated the approximate drop in foot traffic that I have found through COVID. Why it works, it allows the assessor to gain an understanding of your business. So you need to be setting the scene, telling the story, and it speaks about the impact of COVID-19 because we know that that's what this grant is actually targeting. So let your assessor get to know your business and your commitment to the CBD. The second question is tell us about your project, and Tammy's going to come in here as well because this is your opportunity to sell your project idea to the assessor, but you actually have to tick either adaptation, activation, or both. So I've asked Tammy if she would come on now and just explain to you a little bit about adaptation and activation. Are you there, Tammy?
Thanks very much. Yes. Thanks very much, Sally. Just very, very briefly. So the programs itself, the Small Business Transformation Program, has two very key focus areas. So one is adaptation and one is activation. So your proposal can address one or both of these focus areas. So it doesn't penalize you in any way, but the maximum amount of money that you can ask for is still 5,000. So only tick one of the boxes when you are asked which is your primary focus. With adaptation, I guess a very easy way to think about is actually about implementing any longer term shift, realignment or fundamental change in your business operation. And one of the key things that these change should do is will deliver financial viability for the business in a post-COVID environment. The question I'll be asking when you're looking at adaptation is, does it generate new streams of revenue? Does it help the business create longer term financial viability? Does it help the business continue to operate and to grow? So these are the questions you should be asking yourself when you're framing adaptation kind of initiatives or proposal to us. With activation, it's very simple. Does it bring customers back to the city? Does it bring people back into the city? How does it bring people back into the city? Is it bring people back in the city in a safe manner as well? So with activation initiative, it could be an experience that you're trying to create. It could be a campaign that you're doing, but it is very targeted and it will incentivize, if you like, your customers to come back to your store or to your office. So you must show very clear how it is going to bring customers back, not just a broad sort of, I'll do some marketing and that will bring customers, but we want to see exactly very specific targeted campaign initiatives that will incentivize your customers to come back to your store. So as I said before, when you're doing your brief outline of your proposal, make sure you cover all these little points in there to tell us how that is an activation or adaptation, or it could be that it addresses both focus areas. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Tammy. And one thing yesterday Tammy highlighted with me is please guys tick one box only. So you have that third box. If you're doing both adaptation and activation, that's great, but only tick the both box. So just be selecting one only. So back to my friend, the assessor friend, and I've poached another of her slides. And this is not a good example of the question, tell us about your project. It's all about the business. If you read through this, it says all about what the business is. We wash and dry and style dogs, paws and perms is the business. And right at the bottom, the last sentence is the new website will help. What the assessors want to know is what is the project and how it's going to help. So don't be deciding what the assessors want to hear from you. Read the question and answer it. So this is a much better example where the person is saying they need the website for their dog grooming business because it will help them actually generate new income streams and attract new customers and manage their existing customers. So I have a suggested response here. Just going to race through it. I've highlighted in a goldy sort of colour. I hope that's how it's coming across for you. That where I'm actually using the words, the key terms and phrases that are already in the guidelines and in the application. So that doesn't mean slavishly repeating questions back to the assessors. Yes, I am going to do an adaptation project. You have to be telling them what it is that you're doing, but don't be afraid to actually use these key terms. It'll make their hearts sing. It really will. They'll think that you understand exactly what they're looking for. So I'm bringing thingamybobs to the CBD. As you can see, I've got my thingamybobs in blue. I talk about the new and exciting and innovative, and they'll attract not only our previous customers back, but also attract new customers. You can see that's again something that was wanted in the objectives, and that there'll be a benefit to the broader CBD community with me doing this. Why it works, it shows up front that you meet the eligibility criteria, and it shows that you understand the program objectives. So letting the assessor know why it's important to bring thingamybobs to the CBD. So then the third question is adaptation. Now, if you've selected adaptation, then the other activation question won't come up. If you selected both, you will get both of these. So it just depends on what you actually select to answer at that point about tell us about your project. So this is, as Tammy really clearly said, it's about how your project's new and innovative. Remember that this can be either something completely new or a new way or a new additional way to your usual business. So I've written a response again. I'll run through it really, really quickly because, again, I know that the clock is ticking. So I talk about, while my current stock of widgets and Watsits is available online and at various other outlets, thingamybobs take my business in an exciting new direction. So I know that's really basic, guys, but you're trying to say how it is that it's going to change your business, make it more financially viable, sustainable into the future, and also what you will be doing with the business transformation grants. And one of the things that Gerard Byrne always suggests in his workshops, in his books, is speak about how the funding body and how this grant will help you. So don't be afraid to mention their names in there too. Don't have lots of words, but do be making sure that you give them a bit of a mention. Remember that they like a bit of recognition and thanks. So why this works, it picks up the keywords, demonstrates the adaptation of the project, and identifies the new revenue streams. It's keeping very much in mind what they're thinking about. Activation is the next question. It's about action. How are you going to take action? And how here you can describe your intended customer, talk about the marketing activities and things like that. Again, I've given you a very quick response to it. Why it works, the response like this shows the assessors how you're going to actually show your new product or service to the market and gives them confidence that you're going to take action. The other benefits and opportunities. So here they're looking for who else benefits from your project, or what are the broader, greater benefits of the project that you're planning to do. And don't forget that other local businesses in the CBD, they're going to benefit from you attracting new customers in. It's a bit of a destination thing, isn't it, to go to the CBD? So I think that that's something that you could validly talk about. So again, I've given you a response. I won't read the whole thing through, but it talks about those sorts of things that I just mentioned to you there. It shows the broader benefit of funding your project. The more people who you can identify that benefit, the better. So be thinking quite broadly. Think of it like a triangle where you're starting at the top with you and your business. How does it benefit you? Then broader, broader, broader until you can get to that broad-based community. And you will find that that works really well for you in your applications. It also works in tenders. So if you're ever writing any tenders. So now we're at the budget and funding request page, or sorry, question. So please ensure, this is from Tammy, by the way, guys. So this is from the other side saying, please put the total cost of your project in. Quite often, apparently, people will respond by just putting in 5,000, but maybe your total project cost is really 20,000. Be putting that in here because it's good for the grant body to understand what the total cost of the project is and what their part in it is, and break down the budget items as well. So there might be several different things that you're actually asking for funding for. Don't lump them all together, break them down. Now, in no way does this mean that there will be a preference given to either larger or smaller projects. It's not about the size of your project, it's about giving that detail. There's also a request for other funding sources, and this is an area that applicants overlook sometimes. So here I've got, don't forget to include things like wages as part of the cost of the project. So if you are allocating time, maybe one of your employees' time to actually do things, this, be putting that in, do a calculation, the number of hours multiplied by their wages, obviously. And there's other examples there like overdraft, lines of credit, private investment, as well. Do putting those things in. Can everybody hear me okay, Ross? Because I've just had something come up, so my internet is unstable.
No, everyone can hear you okay. You just dropped a bit. You're okay. Keep going.
Okay, thank you. What the funding body want to know here is that you are able to fund the total cost of the project. So they don't want to be funding something that is not going to get up because all of the other things around it are not in place. So that's why they're asking this question. Be putting some thought into this when you're doing your project planning. It's really important. So question 5 is ethical and sustainable business considerations. And this is where we come back to the it's actually optional whether you write something here, but I always suggest, strongly suggest to my clients that if they're given an opportunity to say something, please do. That could be the difference between your application and somebody else's application. It gives just a greater depth of knowledge, more confidence to the assessors. And that's really what we're doing here. As we're going through these questions, we're building a story that creates confidence in the assessors and the granting body that this is a good project, that it meets their objectives, that it will actually be finished and there will be an outcome, something will happen. So I've asked Tammy to come back in here again and just talk a little bit about some of the things that you might actually put in here, because I know it would be tempting to skip it because it is one of those things you just have to tick a yes, no box. You don't actually have to write too much. So are you there, Tammy?
Yes. So it's very important that you read the Australian Ethical Charter before you tick yes or no. So we want to make sure that your organisation, your proposal are aligned with the objectives of the Charter. The second question, which is about current and proposed sustainable business practices, there is really no right or wrong answer here, and you don't have to put in 20 points or so on to make sure that you cover everything. It's really about council trying to sort of think about encouraging businesses to think about what are some of the sustainable practices maybe you can embed into your business operations. The council has a very strong commitment again about sustainability, and we want to encourage and we want you all as businesses think about how that could be possible within your business operation. So therefore, simple things like, it could be recycling that you're thinking about, encouraging your employees, to ride to work, or it could be if you have a product or something, making sure all your packaging and so on, they are maybe sourced locally, they reduce waste, they're not going to create a lot of waste. So those are the things that, depending on the nature of your business, you should try and describe them and tell us that the opportunities you would have to embed this sort of business sustainable business practices into your operations. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you, Tammy. That was great. And hopefully that was really helpful for you guys. You can always access the recording and listen to it again for those tips and clues. So the last question asked is about risk management, and it's very important because funding bodies tend to be very risk averse. So you can see here from my graphic that obviously the clock is ticking. It's the final question. Maybe you feel like you've said everything you have to say. Please be putting some thought into the risk management side of things as well. It really is important. So be thinking about the types of risk that may be involved and how that might impact the project, your business, how it might actually impact the City of Melbourne. So please do give that due consideration. Then we get to the supporting documentation, and it is critical to put supporting documentation in. You're selling your project short without them. It is part of the assessment process. So be gathering that documentation, things like your project plans. You can have graphics, photographs, mock-ups. You have all sorts of things that you can put in there and upload. Timelines are great because that shows that it is realistic, that you've thought about how long it might take for something to be implemented. Letters of support, they take time to gather. I know I've had to chase them down right down to the wire. People say yes, and then it takes them a little while to get round to actually writing the letter of support for you, but you're very aware that time's ticking by and you need to get that in. And they work really well too, because they show there's some substance there and that people are behind your project. If you've done some market research and analysis, then be putting that in there. It's a good idea to do that because it does show the viability of your project. A marketing plan, that's always good. That's your activation. So be thinking about those things. They are important. Don't skip through it. So now you're ready to submit your application, and our little otter is doing a prayer to the granting gods that we get through, and we do actually get funded. There's really good guidance here on the application. Sorry, this is not the application form, on the guidelines. So be reading through this. Very clear that they close on Thursday the 3rd of September at 11:59 p.m. Don't be missing any of those critical bits of information. There's a little bit about the process, the application process there. Tammy asked me to put in the application process sheet, so that's also available so that you can see the steps, where you make your application, then it goes to assessment, then there's an outcome. You'll be notified of the outcome, then you'll be sent a funding agreement if you're successful, and there will be payment made. And then there's always reporting at the end, guys. Be aware, you will have some reporting. It's usually not onerous. Mostly they just want to hear how the project went, if there were any extra benefits maybe that came out of it, any surprises, any ways that it can be done better in the future. That's what that's about. So just be aware that be keeping documentation so that you can do your reporting really easily. If you're feeling like this still, or this, or this, or even this, please don't. We are genuinely here to help. There are Sbms mentors standing by ready to assist with your grant application. They will be of great benefit to you. Here are the contact details. They'll be available, I think, on the website. Is that right, Tammy? They'll be available on the website.
Yes.
Yes, great. So to access mentoring, please call the Business Concierge Hotline, 9658 9658. They're open between 7:30 in the morning and 6 at night, Monday to Friday. You can also email businessfunding@melbourne.vic.gov.au. So that's for the Sbms mentoring sessions to get assistance with this grant round. I would just like to take a moment or two to talk to you about making the most out of your Sbms mentoring sessions. It's not your mentor's job to write your application for you. There's simply not the time to do that. So do a bit of prep beforehand, gather your relevant documentation, start to write the responses to criteria, even if it's dot points, at least make a start on it. Don't leave your mentoring session to the last minute, because the mentor will be able to review and help you refine your responses and maybe even make some great suggestions as to other things that you could put in there, or maybe different ways of expressing things. But you will need to go away and probably massage that a little bit as well. So leave time. Please don't leave it till the last minute. It just makes stress for everybody. So a quick checklist for successful grant applications, obviously meeting that eligibility, putting the prep into your application, researching your project costs, considering other funding sources, including relevant information and the additional documentation, supporting documentation. And don't forget to make a bit of a plan and a checklist. I have 3 vital takeaways for you today. Read the guidelines and questions very carefully, more than once with a highlighter. Demonstrate, show what you're thinking to the assessor so they can understand your project really clearly, have confidence in it, and make sure, of course, that it's relevant. You're giving the assessor relevant information. And Tammy asked me to add one more. Tammy's hot tip is submit on time. Your application cannot be assessed if you submit. Oh, sorry.
Can I just highlight that point that you can write the best applications in the world. If you don't submit on time, it cannot be assessed and you don't have an opportunity to receive a grant. So submit on time and make sure you don't leave it too late. The 3 key reasons, or most common reasons for not able to submit an application are the following. 1, that the mandatory fields within the application form are not completed or they're not completed correctly. So those fields are the ones with the little red asterisk. The second one, most common one, is the word count exceeds the word limit. So some of the fields that we have to put your response in, there is a word limit there, and you can see the word count as you go because it does track there. So if you exceed the word count, it will not allow you to submit. So you will have to come back and reduce your word count. The third one that's most common is also the internet connection interruption. If you have an interruption when you are submitting, it will not go through. So you will have to resubmit. So based on all these points, you really need to allow ample time to do your submission. So don't wait until 11:55. I know you all like to work under pressure, but give yourself a little bit more time. Maybe start at 11 o'clock at least, so that you have the time to amend any errors or anything that you need to correct before you do the final submission. But that's my tip. Thanks, Ellie.
That's great, Tammy. Thank you. And I'm sorry, guys, about my alarm going off and telling me that 45 minutes was up. I didn't expect that. So Gerard Byrne, the grandfather of grant writing in Australia, he has 10-point plan for getting to yes. Plan ahead, read the guidelines, use a highlighter, find the contact person if you have any queries. Be realistic in your expectations, in your timelines, what you can actually achieve, do that background homework, gather all your evidence, collaborate where you can. Look at how you can measure your outcomes, because remember, you're going to have to be reporting at the end of the period. Tailor your grant application to the criteria and always have your work proofread, because it can be a little annoying if things don't read smoothly. So it's really good to have another set of eyes go over the information. So if you've got any more questions, you can ring the Business Concierge Hotline. This is also where you get your Sbms mentoring session voucher from. For information about the application form or process, you can email businessfunding@melbourne.vic.gov.au. Remember earlier we talked about the Smarty Grants platform. If you have any issues with them, you can call them on 93206888 or email them at service@smartygrants.com.au. Technical issues, like not being able to open a page or not being able to access the platform, please go to Smarty Grants in the first instance. So just a reminder, this is the slide that I showed you earlier on about Smarty Grants and how there is a very useful help guide for applicants. It's a very user-friendly platform. So we are really hoping that we have helped shed some light on successful grant writing today. I've thoroughly enjoyed presenting it to you, creating this slide deck for you. I hope that you have really enjoyed it as well. We're definitely here to help. We're hoping that you feel much more grant savvy, writing savvy now, like my little fellow. Looks like he's doing some sort of dance there. So we're at question time. And back over to Ross, I think, is going to take over question time.
Thank you very much, Sally, and thank you, Tammy, for your contribution. Yes, those that want to post a question can post it in the chat line to me now. I'll look at it. I've got a couple here already, and I'd like to pose them to Tammy. Tammy, we have a question that a question states that we've started online marketing campaign to obtain new clients, pay advertising fee instalment. Is the advertising fee eligible for funding?
Yes, the advertising fee can be considered for funding as long as it's directly related to the proposal and it's very clear rationale and justification to support it. Just in terms of time, in terms of when that advertising fee was paid, make sure that any expenditure already incurred prior to the submission of the application will not be considered. So please be mindful of that. Thanks.
Okay, Sammy, another question for you. I know you gave a bit of an overview of adaptation, but can you give us a further example of the adaptation question? This is in professional services. Can you give us an example of adaptation?
Okay, some good examples I've seen recently of professional services, business adaptation include like moving their services delivery online. So whether it's, a set of webinars, video teleconferencing, and moving their meetings online. Some of them also work remotely to support their customers. Others might have introduced some new services or products to complement what they currently offer. The one thing to think about is that make sure that the adaptation is not a business as usual activity. So these activities such as operating costs, ongoing maintenance will not be considered as adaptation. And if these are the type of course or activity you're doing, you should think about going to the state government business support fund for support for this type of activities that relates to the operation of the business.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. Number one here, how do we address the tangible benefits for other businesses in the City of Melbourne? How to measure the potential benefit? Very
good question. It really all boils down or depends on the nature of the proposal. Some examples might be that you're procuring products or services from local suppliers within the City of Melbourne for the delivery of the proposal. Or others might be that you're engaging quite actively with the other city businesses as delivery partners of the proposal. So these are kind of different types of benefits that you can provide to the other businesses in the City of Melbourne.
Really, thank you. Thank you. Others here too. Are Queen Victoria market traders eligible?
Sorry, Ross, I can't hear the question.
Sorry, Tammy. Are Queen Victoria market traders eligible for the program?
Yes, they are eligible as long as they can address the eligibility criteria, such as, JobKeeper, the participants, employing staff, has a legal business structure. I think it's best to refer to our guidelines for more details of the eligibility criteria. If you have any doubts or any of the traders have any doubts or anything, please send us an email, give us a call. I'll be happy to discuss more with them.
All right, we have a bit of a sound problem going on as well, so just bear with us. Okay, thanks you for that. Are tour, transport and tourism businesses eligible?
Yes, they are eligible as long as, again, they can address the eligibility criteria. Again, one of the key things for some of these type of businesses is that they must be able to show that they have a physical business premise in one of the 4 postcodes for this program, which is 3000, 3005, 3006, and 3008. If the business is in this type of industry is only just delivering their service in the city, but actually don't have a business location in the city, then they will be ineligible.
Thank you, Tammy. Good. We have a couple of other questions coming through. I've applied previously without success. I don't want to waste my time.
Well, I think as Sally has put out, different programs have different guidelines and different criteria. So the mere fact that you are unsuccessful in one doesn't mean that you're unsuccessful in another. So what I would do is encourage you to read the guidelines, read the eligibility criteria. And again, if you're in doubt or need some help, reach out to one of the small business mentoring service mentor, or if you need some clarification with the guidelines, send us an email or give us a call. I'll be here to help.
Yeah, I agree that, Amy, I've put the same thing, is that read the criteria. If in doubt, call the concierge area. But in the back of that book, you've got the availability to talk to a mentor as well. So appreciate that. A comment is it this is a very short time frame for a grant application. Are they normally 2 weeks? Why the short time frame?
Different programs have different time frames. So some programs have 4 weeks, some programs have 2 weeks. So for this program specifically, at the moment, it's only for 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, here's another interesting one. Is a one-off event acceptable, or has to be an ongoing plan?
I beg your pardon?
Just on this one, we've had a question coming. Is one-off event acceptable?
It is acceptable so long as it addresses one of the focus areas and address the criteria.
Okay, good. All right, we have another one. Can your adaptation involve improving an existing service delivery of the business, i.e. taking payments on your website?
Can you repeat the question, Ross?
Can your adaptation involve improving an existing service delivery of the business?
It will depend. I think we will probably need a little bit more details about that before I can make a comment. So I'm happy to take that one offline.
Sure. Okay. All right, I think that's about it. The others that have made comment will respond to those offline as we go to those that have asked. So we'll apply to those.
Thanks very much for the question. And on behalf of the City of Melbourne, I'd like to wish all of you all the very best with your applications. And please submit on time. Thank you.